All right, welcome back to another chapter here in the nervous system, particularly. And this chapter is the somatic nervous system. And the somatic nervous system is traditionally considered a division within the peripheral nervous system. However, this kind of misses an important point. And that point is that the somatic refers to a functional division, whereas the peripheral nervous system is a anatomical division, right? So the somatic nervous system is responsible for our conscious perception of the environment, as well as our voluntary responses to that perception, which is often carried out by skeletal muscles. So the classic example of the somatic nervous system is what we have here on our screen here, where you have a withdrawal type of response. And in the example here, we have a painful stimuli. So this young lady steps on a bottle of glass. And so the sensory input is the painful stimulus that's going to send that signal. It'll be pink here. That's going to send the signal down through the posterior portion of the spinal cord and interact with interneurons or association neurons in the spinal cord. The second part is the motor response, and we'll make that green here. The motor response to the muscles of the thigh that allow you to withdraw your leg. But this also comes with a motor response to the contralateral leg, in this case, to allow you to maintain balance, right? So the somatic nervous system incorporates all of the sensory information as well as the motor responses that occur. And so we'll start our introduction of the chapter by looking at the different types of sensory receptors specifically. There's numerous different types of sensory receptors, so we'll look at how they're classified. One way that we can classify them is by their structure. And so the structure of neurons are classified in one of two ways. You have the free nerve endings, and that's right here in green. You have this free nerve ending. And this is pretty much the dendritic region, right? The dendrites are encapsulated in, or they're encapsulated in a connective tissue. So, what is it about this encapsulation? Well, the encapsulation actually increases the sensitivity of the neurons. So, in neurons that are responsible for very light touch vibration, you'll find an encapsulated nerve ending there. The dendrite is encapsulated, whereas pain, which is a kind of a dull response, and is you don't want pain to be signaled right away. It takes a little bit more to signal pain. So pain is more of a free nerve ending, meaning that it's not as sensitive to a response as that of the encapsulated one. And then finally, there are what's known as specialized receptors. Specialized receptors are ones that are responsible for particular stimuli. So the example here on the bottom of your screen is a photoreceptor. This is something that is stimulated by light. So a specialized receptor like that of a photoreceptor, or even like a chemical receptor like that of your smell and taste, or specialized chemical receptors, and those are one of those specialized receptors there. So again, in terms of classification structurally, you either have free nerve endings or encapsulated nerve endings as the primary categories, and if other else, if all else, they're a specialized type of receptor. I'll pull my little drawbox down here, and we'll talk a little bit about the classification of receptors in terms of the way that they're classified by the location to the stimulus, or what we might call the receptive field, right? So where is what they're monitoring? And so you can imagine that you have receptors that are on your skin, right, that are called exteroreceptors, right? They monitor the external environment, the outside world, so they monitor for touch, pressure, pain, temperature, and they're located near their stimulus. This is the idea that you see here on the right side of the screen, where the receptors are located towards the surface of the skin. They monitor the environment on the outside of the organism. Interoreceptors monitor stimulus from internal organs, so chemical messengers, temperature, chemical messengers, or osmotic receptors, so maintaining the amount of solute, the amount of water that's needed in terms of interoreceptors, so they can monitor our organs. We do have nociceptors, right? If you ever felt stomach pain or rib pain, or people even have kidney pains, like all of those are related to what you might call interoreceptors. They monitor pain, temperature, stimulus from the internal organs. And then finally, our last one here are proprioceptors. And proprioceptors are located near moving body parts, and they monitor different things like position, stretch, how much tension you have on your muscles. And so they allow us to monitor these our movements and allow movement to be fluid. And so that's the key behind having proprioceptors. These monitor movement, or they might be identified as movement receptors or receptors of awareness, self-awareness. And so we've classified receptors structurally, whether they're encapsulated or free nerve endings, otherwise specialized. We've classified them based on their receptors, where the receptors are located in relationship to the stimulus. And then finally, we'll classify the receptors functionally, and that is based on the stimulus that they receive. So you can see here that nociceptors detect pain, primarily interpreted by the presence of chemical or tissue damage. Thermoreceptors, they detect temperature. They're located all throughout the body there. Photoreceptors detect light, right? They're located in the retina of the eye. Mechanoreceptors. So mechanoreceptors detect a physical stimulus, so pressure and vibration, like sound. So sound is the reception of sound waves, is the perception of sound waves. That wave actually is interpreted by vibration, so monitored by that vibration. So sound is one of those, as well as some of those proprioceptors, like the ones located in your muscles and joints, are mechanoreceptors. Chemoreceptors monitor chemical stimulus, so objects that taste or smell, and they're located within your mouth and your nose. And then all the last one there are osmoreceptors, and they measure solute concentrations, right? Solute concentrations. So we're looking at concentrations of body fluids throughout the body, and that's a big one, right? Because our cells need that maintenance of optimal solutes in water. So as we get into our introduction of the somatic nervous system, again, it's important to identify the important classifications of receptors, whether they're classified structurally into encapsulated or free nerve endings, whether they're classified by their location to the stimulus, exteroreceptors, interoreceptors, or proprioceptors, or whether they're functionally classified as it relates to what they're monitoring, right? And so in the latter portion of this chapter, we'll talk a little bit specifically about the sensory systems of taste and smell, as well as hearing and balance. And we'll continue this here in further discussions. But until then, take care and stay safe.